Hey everybody, so today we're going to be replacing a rear wheel hub assembly on this 2008 Mazda. It is a CX-7 turbo model, all-wheel drive. I'm not sure the process involved in doing this. I've never done this particular vehicle, but it's probably going to be a little more complex than most because you start the damn thing with a credit card. Anyways, we're going to go ahead and jack up the back of the car, and we're going to check both sides because the wheel hub assemblies on these and the bearings are a known issue. If one side is gone, generally speaking, the other is not far behind. This particular Mazda also suffers from the weeping timing chain gasket and the tensioner issue, which we may address later. This vehicle belongs to my friend Mike. You may remember Mike from the other Mazda video I have posted, the Mazda Millennia with the Michigan Cycle engine in it, the old start we did with that vehicle. So I'm going to go ahead and jack the back of the car up, and we're going to check both bearings.
Alright, so I have the wheel off, and we can see here that the rotor is pretty rusty. It's been wearing unevenly because the bearing's at a bit of an angle. It looks like it's been like that for a while, actually. So first thing we're going to do is there's a 10mm bolt right behind the rotor here on the top. That's for your ABS sensor. There is I believe this is a 17mm, so let me double check that. 17mm for the caliper mount, and a 14mm for the calipers themselves. I think what you could do is just take the 17mm bolt off for the entirety of the mount and remove that, but I'm going to remove both. There's one here for the mount, and there's one underneath, and then there's one for the caliper here, and there's one underneath. So we're going to take those off first, and then we'll take off the rotor. Alright, so we got the caliper and the caliper mount off. Right here, it all came off very nicely in one piece. I like to put the bolts back in where they belong as I take things apart. It makes it easier to keep track of where things need to go, where they belong. Like on a project this small, it's not really necessary, but on larger projects, if you walk away for a week, you can forget where things go and what bolt is for what sometimes. So I also have the caliper tied up here on this suspension arm piece. I removed this clip from here so that we can get it well out of the way, and I've bungeed it to that piece. It's there nice and secure. You can use wire too, whatever works. So the next thing we're going to do is take the rotor off. The rotor is I believe this is a number 2 Phillips. So there's 2 of these guys here. We're going to take both of those off, and then if we're lucky, the rotor should just pull off. Alright, so that came off really easily. Didn't have to use a puller or anything like that, or sometimes what you can do is a little hole here. You find a bolt that goes through there, thread it in, and it'll push the rotor off. Didn't have to do that in this case, which is nice. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to use a 12mm, and we're going to go in the back here, and we're going to remove the emergency brake cable. So we'll go ahead and do that, and then we'll probably take off the backing plate. So one other thing, the second bolt on the bottom of the e-brake thing here, you're not going to be able to fit a socket on there. So what you're going to want to use is a wrench. It's a 12mm wrench, and because it is going to be rather tight, a trick you can use is if you've got 2, you can hook them together like this, and that'll give you the leverage you need to break that loose. Okay, now that we have this piece off, we can use a flathead screwdriver and lift this pin right here. Be very careful not to break this pin. This is pretty thin steel, and depending on whether you're doing this now or how much salt there's been on the road, this could be pretty weakened. You just need to lift it just a little bit, and then you'll be able to wiggle this like this. Here, I'm going to just pause this for a second, and I'll show you. There we go. So all you have to do is push these 2 pieces together once that tab is lifted, and this piece will pop out the back side here. You can see that it's got a slot in it right there for the cable to slide through. So once that's off, and this is all loose, you can go ahead and move this up and remove it from that piece there. Oh, I almost forgot to mention. Once you've got your 10mm bolt out of your ABS sensor, just give it a bit of a wiggle. It could be pretty stuck in there. Get a very thin flathead screwdriver and just work it in a little bit there. Be careful, these are expensive. There's been many times that I've worked on older vehicles, they've been seized in, and you don't really have any choice but to cut it off and drill it out. In this case, this one came out pretty well. You can see that because it's a magnetic pickup, it's got some schmoo on there, some metal dust and stuff, probably from the rotor. We'll clean that up before we put it back in, but in the meantime, we'll just put it over here with the caliper. Okay, so I don't think we need to take the backing plate off. What we are going to do is we're going to take the brake shoes off of the emergency brake, and we're going to use a 17mm socket and remove this arm. So you can see here that these threads are pretty dirty. You're going to want to clean all that up before you back that out, otherwise what's going to happen is a bunch of that dirt and junk is going to get inside that bolt when you're removing it, and it's going to bind up on you, and, you know, it's just not good for the threads. So we'll get that cleaned up, and then we'll take that bolt out. Alright, that came out really easily. The next bolt we're going to take out is this one down here. Same size, I think. Hold on, I'll double check. Yes, same size. That's going to disconnect this arm here. And then we're going to remove the bolt off the back of this one, and I'm going to say that's the same size. Generally it is. But before you do that, stick a jack under there. Don't lift it up, just so it's right there, because what sometimes happens, and it's probably going to happen with this one, is this spring is under load, right? And this thing is retaining everything. So when you take this bolt out, if you don't have a jack here, after you struggle to get that out, this thing's going to want to go down like that. So you put a jack there to stop that. And we'll do this later, but to get this back in, you're going to want to push that down, and you're also going to want to jack from the bottom, and that'll bring the two pieces together, and you can get the bolt back in. But I'm going to take those bolts out, and then we'll go from there. So here's a little trick I've done. The lower bolt on this you have to get to from the back. So I've taken my my long 17mm. I've stuck it the bottom in right there. Come on, focus. There we go. Stuck it right there. Lifted this up with my hand, and then rested it in there. So that'll get that up out of the way. That'll give you more swing with your ratchet when you're taking the bolt off. All right, we got the lower bolt out without too much trouble. Bit of a tight squeeze for the my big ratchet in there, but not a big deal. So the next thing we're going to do is lower the jack just a little bit, real slow. See if it goes down. Yeah. There we go. Nice and easy. There we go. That's enough. So that gets that out of the way. The next thing we're going to do is I'm going to get my 1-inch drive set, and we're going to get a chisel as well. We're going to knock that little dimple out of there. Put the drive set on here, and put a crowbar in here, and we're going to break that loose. Alright, so we're going to take this bolt off now. You can see that we've knocked that little dimple out. I've got 2 of the lug nuts on here to protect the threads. I've got my pry bar to the ground, and we have our 1 1/4 inch drive socket. We're going to put it on there, and you'll probably, if you got a proper size impact, it'll make it easier. I've just got brute strength. I'm going to use the ratchet and a snipe. Put this on the end of the ratchet, and that'll give me the leverage I need to break that loose. So I'll get that off, and then we'll continue on. All right, easy peasy. That came off super easy. So now what we're gonna do, I've seen a video where a fellow went in through the back here. There's a series of torques through here that you can get to if you have a long extension and you do some tricks. But I think I was going to do that, but what I think we're going to do is we'll just take this bolt off here. There's 2 bolts under here holding this on, one here and one here. We'll take those off. This arm will drop. We're going to hang the caliper on this arm back here, and then we're going to use our puller to push that through, and then we'll just take this whole piece off as one assembly. Oh yeah, and take this 10mm off and push the e-brake cable through there. So yeah, after we do that, this whole thing will come off as one assembly, and then we can put it on the bench and work on it. It'll be easier that way. And if you're wondering why the back of my hand says IMP, it's because I had to remember to bring my impact sockets with me. Alright, another quick note. So these two bolts are the same size as all the other suspension ones, 17mm. Word to the wise, don't use an impact on these. They are just tack welded inside of this little piece that's welded to the A-frame here. If those break off in there, that's going to be all kinds of bad. So if you notice there's a lot of rust here, like those threads are going to be dirty and there's no way to get in there to clean them, right? So I would do the old 3 turns out, 2 turns in, 3 turns out, 2 turns in, back and forth like this. That'll the threads will clean themselves, and then you back it in, and then all the gum and goo and rust and junk will fall out of the threads. And that way you won't bind it up in there and end up breaking the tack welds on that nut that's holding inside of that little box there. So yeah, just generally, even if you don't see a lot of rust, do that. It's a good trick. Takes longer, but I can guarantee you that if you break that off in there, you're going to wish you had spent a little extra time taking those 2 bolts out, because that's going to ruin your day. Alright, we got those 2 bolts out, and like I thought, they were pretty tight. We'll show you here. You can see, where are they? You can see that there was corrosion. This is where it was sitting in the nut, and then this part was all corrosion. So back and forth, worked it out. Took a little while, but well worth the patience. So the next thing we're going to do is, I got the puller on here. We're going to push the CV axle splines through there, and then this whole thing should just come off. And there you have it. She's off of there. So what's next is we'll take this into the shop, and there's 4 Torx on the back of that. We'll pop those out and put in the new hubs. Alright, after a bit of persuasion with the mallet of truth here, we were able to get the old one out. These Torx here, just in case anybody's wondering, are T55. They were in there pretty good. Like, man, I got the battle wound to prove it. But so we got our new hub here. It's prime choice. You know it's real good because it says deeply threaded bolt and holes. Huh. And let's see here. High mileage lube seals, galvanized steel construction, and anti-corrosion lubricant coat. And the box, and it's got this fine, high quality plastic wrapper. Best China makes, right here. Best stuff. It all comes, it's like, it's all the same stuff, man. Like, whatever. Anyways, we're gonna pop that in here. And don't be that guy that thinks, I'm fixing this, I'm never gonna have to worry about it again. If it ever might come apart again, put anti-seize on that bolt. Unless it tells you not to, for some reason. Because, sure as shit, the next idiot that has to do this is gonna be you. Do that idiot a favor and make it easier for him. Alright, so we're gonna put this new one in, and we'll reassemble the whole thing, and then we'll do... I guess I could just play the video backwards, right? And save myself the trouble of filming the rest of it. Oh, by the way, definitely you're gonna want to take this whole assembly, like the arm and everything, out of the vehicle. It was a real... I had to beat the hell out of this. I could have used the press, but I don't have a flat bar piece. Anyways, never mind. I would have had to summon a demon and sacrifice a baby to get this out if it was still in the car. But we got it out. We're gonna put the new one in, anti-seize, everything, torque this. I don't know what the torques are. I'm going to look it up online. You can too. Anybody with a computer and, a keyboard can do it. Go ahead and look them up for yourself. One more thing. You're going to want to take some sandpaper, 40 grit, something like that. Clean this up real good. Don't take too much metal off. Just, get it nice and clean. That'll make the reinstallation of the hub a lot easier. And this is the area you want to put the anti-seize on, right here, because this is the part that sits inside of here, and that's where it's going to bind up. So anti-seize that. Nice liberal coat. Put the two pieces together. And don't forget to anti-seize and torque your torques. So it's going back together with no trouble at all. And the last part to bolt in is this upper swing arm piece. And as you can recall, this piece was up like that. So what I've done is got my jack lifting from this point here. So we're lifting, and I'm lifting from the edge here because you want to twist the piece a little bit as it goes up. So we've got that, and we've got the bolt started, but as you can see, it's cocked a little bit to the side like that. So just a little bit like that. And what you're going to want to do is you want to get like about a 15 millimeter, put it on there, and you can just go like this, and then you should be able to just push the bolt right through. I can't do it with one hand, so just give me a sec here. Just like that. Went in. So we'll put that bolt in, and then the next thing to do is to put the ABS sensor back in to here, and put your 10 mil back in, and reattach the e-brake cable to the e-brake. We will put on a brand new rotor, and we'll put on some brand new pads. We'll have to back off the caliper, which is back there, and put in your keeper, and we're going to do all that, and then I'll be back. Alright, we're all done. I thought that Mike had supplied us with a couple of new rotors, but it's just pads, and these rotors are pretty rough. So it's Sunday today, it's getting late. I don't have time tomorrow to continue working on this, so I just put the old rotor back on and the old pads. That way when this rotor chowders these pads, it's not going to be a big deal. We'll do both at the same time later on, probably when I do the hub assembly on the other side. This is all torqued, as you can see. It even lined up with the thing again, so I was able to knock it same place. That's great. These new hubs don't have the little keepers. There's no slot or threaded hole for these guys, so I'm not sure. Maybe that's because these vehicles are also rebadged under a Ford. I forget what they call them if they're Ford, but I'm wondering if maybe this is because this is a sport model or something or like that. I don't know. Anyways, thanks for watching. If you liked the video, maybe hit the subscribe button or the like button. Leave a comment. If you got questions, go ahead and ask me. I'll do my best to answer. I'll also say this entire video, I didn't have jack stands, but I did have those hefty wood blocks there just in case. You always want to have something under there. You never want to rely just on your jack if you're actually under the vehicle. And at some points, I had my head under the wheel well here, and if things had gone south, you could get seriously injured. I also recommend gloves. I don't personally use gloves for everything, but it can spare you some lost skin. And goggles and hearing protection if you're using an impact. Like I have my impact here, which I use to take the tires on and off. You're going to want to wear hearing protection. But yeah, thanks for watching this video, and we'll see you again next time.